Hello, and welcome to the We Need Water podcast. My name is Michael Brent, and I work for Cascade Water Alliance in King County, Washington. Cascade is a municipal water supplier providing drinking water to 400,000 residents. I'm glad you're here. Our topic today is safe, clean water from the air. And our guest is Mr. Brian Shing, CEO of Aquaria Technologies. Welcome, Mr. Shing.
Thank you, Mike. We definitely need more water, and I'm super excited to be able to share my story here on the podcast.
Excellent. Let's dive right in. How do you harvest water from the air?
That's a great question. I think most of us understand that there's lots of water in the air, right? I mean, rain is water from the air, and it depends on where we live. I think Pacific Northwest, obviously, lots of humidity in the air. Um, but I think most people don't understand how much water exactly. So there's actually more than 200 times more water in the air than humans consume annually. And so we've created a product that is able to energy efficiently harvest this moisture in large volumes into clean water.
Okay. Well, I remember when I was growing up, we had a finished basement in our home, and we had to run a dehumidifier to keep the room from being too clammy and things getting moldy. So, is your technology the same as a dehumidifier? Does the water production vary based on local humidity?
Uh, yes, it absolutely varies with local humidity. No, our technology is not like a dehumidifier, although I would say I think that's a great way to picture creating water from the air. Um, Water is a result of many different processes, one of which would be dehumidification, but it's also a byproduct of air conditioning and combustion and carbon dioxide capture and many other processes. Because essentially, whenever heat is dissipated and there is a drop in the temperature of air, then you kind of have condensation that form, right? So like we would also know that if you take a can of beer out of the fridge and you just put it on your desk in the summertime, then it would also start forming water droplets. So
It sure
all of that
does.
happens, but our technology focuses on how do we do it at scale, meaning our vision is to be able to create water from the air enough to power entire communities and in the future power entire cities. And so obviously a dehumidifier can't do that. And then we also have to ensure how do we do that in an energy efficient way, because a dehumidifier is also very inefficient energy wise for producing water. It does its job, but when we get to that volume, it doesn't
Mhm.
work quite sufficiently. So that's what our technology does, and of course it does vary with the temperature and humidity. But again, that's the focus area for our technology to be able to do that.
Right. Well, how much water can an atmospheric generator harvest in one day?
So it depends on the size, right? So currently we have created products that are kind of like a Tesla battery pack. So you can actually link them together for larger and larger production. So our flagship unit is a unit that can produce up to 260 gallons of water per day. And that's enough to satisfy the holistic water needs for a family home, but you can link them together for bigger
Mhm.
production.
Mhm. Fascinating. I was thinking as you were talking, one of the aspects of climate change, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, is uh, the world is getting warmer, and that generates more water in the atmosphere. And we see this all the time now with these 100 and 1,000 year flooding events that are happening with great regularity now, and stronger hurricanes and so forth. So I guess ironically, this is a little bit of a side benefit of climate change, is that there is more moisture in the atmosphere available to be harvested.
That's exactly correct, Mike. And we're talking about we need water, but water is not exactly always staying in one place, right? One of the biggest problem with water we have is the spatial distribution of available water. And obviously right now, the fresh water is moving from the ground into the sky. And then also at the same time with climate change, when we talk about ocean levels rising, for example, that's coming inland and depleting our freshwater reserves, especially along the coastlines. And also, when we have more extreme natural disasters, then also that's disrupting our freshwater reserves. And so, but a lot of that is actually going into the sky. And so that's why we're super excited. And I think this is a huge frontier that we're breaking through because we need another option to harvest water. And, the sky is a sustainable and self regenerating source. So lots of potential here to unlock for this water source.
Right, right. Well, you mentioned that sort of, I guess, your base unit that you use is enough, can supply a typical family, typical household's daily uses. But after the water is harvested, how's it treated? Is there some sort of treatment technology that goes along with this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, actually, our units all have multi-stage air and water filtration technology inside the machine. And so, the first thing that happens when uh, the first thing that happens for our machine is we first take the air in. So we suck in large volumes of air. So when that first comes in, it's passed through a multi-stage air filter so that anything in the air, like maybe pollen or particulate matters, VOCs, they're all caught. So we have clean air and making sure nothing is in the air before it goes into the machine. Now, once it's the machine and we've created the water and collected it into our water tank, we then run the water through a series of water purification filters, activated charcoal, ultrafiltration, M cell membranes, things like that, to make sure that we are doing a second layer of water purification. So what comes out is actually water that exceeds WHO and EPA quality drinking water standards for your needs.
Similar to rainwater harvesting, for example, I've seen rainwater harvesting systems, and they use those kinds of technologies as well to make sure the water is safe and clean.
Yes, very important to make sure that the water, there- depending on where you're at, your local air is going to be different. Your local rain is going to be different.
Mm.
So you have to make sure that they are fit for consumption. Actually, fun fact about one of our machines is actually we have this like a starter unit mic it's much smaller. So it's actually you can put it inside your house. It doesn't have to be outside. So this unit is you can plug it in, plug it right into your wall. It looks like a Apple product, but they design a water cooler, except it's coming from the air with no water outlet. Since it's for consumers, we actually mineralize the water and add taste to it so that it tastes very nice. Versus some of our other products, you might be using it for showers and whatnot. So we're not going to make your shower water mineralize and with an alkaline pH. That would be a
Mhm.
waste of resources. But we've created some fun products for our customers as well.
So you've harvested the water, you've treated the water, but how do you plumb it into a home or a business?
Yeah. So actually, we just need a simple connection to the water main. And that can start delivering water to the property. So that would need to be pumped in, of course. So the typical installation, um, actually, you should have a water tank. Most properties, commercial ones at least, have water tanks or some kind of water device. Or for a home, you might want to install a water tank because that then acts as your almost like a water battery, right? You can kind of store the water and whatnot, but you pump the water with a connection directly into your water main, and that way you can switch between utility water and air water.
Hmm. I have a little cabin in Montana, and we're on a well,
Mm,
and so we have such a device ourselves to pressurize uh, pressurize the well water into the water lines of the home.
that's very similar. I
Interesting.
think that's very similar.
Hmm. So you talked about this being one of the goals is being energy efficient as well. What sort of energy demands does the technology have?
Yeah. So it the footprint of the device energy wise, of course, also is related to the amount of water that you're producing. But our what we start with is a 1 kilowatt device, and that can produce up to 24 gallons of water per day. Um, and then, of course, you can kind of do the math and about linearly with some efficiency
Mhm.
increases, but that kind of math works out to, scale, 1 kilowatt unit apply a 1 kilowatt appliance rated, and then that would produce up to 24 gallons. And so however much you need, multiply that by however much water you want, and that's approximately how much energy you would need.
Okay. Well, how many people are you currently serving, and what kind of feedback are you receiving?
So a lot of the work that we're doing right now is education and then also finding the right areas that we want to focus on. Obviously, water is a huge issue globally, and lots of different places need more water. We've been having lots of interest from Mexico because of the drought that's been happening in Mexico City. Um, Lots of issues in Texas as well. So that's really a big part of our work at the moment, and people don't believe it's real, right? That's I think that's one I think that's or maybe some of our fans from Star Wars would have seen the water harvesting from planet Tatooine. So we're sort of bringing science fiction
That's right.
to life right now. So I think
Okay.
that's a big part of it, the education.
I, yeah. It seems to fly under the radar of most people, but there are actually a significant number of people in the United States who don't have access to safe, clean drinking water. I've had the opportunity to spend some time on the Navajo Nation, for example, in New Mexico, and the many of the communities down there. There is groundwater, but from decades of uranium mining, many of those aquifers are contaminated and not at all safe to drink. So it's a really uh, serious problem down there for a lot of people. So uh, maybe your technology could be utilized to help people in that area, for example.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things about educating people on water. It doesn't even have to be maybe my technology per se, but we have a huge supply issue when it comes to the methodologies that we have to provide water. I think it's amazing work that the utilities and the municipalities are providing water, but the approach is all around the centralized approach. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
there's needs for more flexibility or smaller scale. And, I think it's quite exciting that we're in this environment where people are focused on investing in new climate technologies, of which I think there's going to be more innovations in providing water. The other day, I saw a company that was making the headlines, and they're seeding clouds. They're literally making it rain.
Mm.
It's a different form of atmospheric water, I guess. But this kind of stuff
Right.
makes me excited that we're heading towards a more optimistic future with various ways of providing water, and of course, hopefully, places like Navajo Nation and elsewhere would be the benefactor of that.
Well, I think we definitely have to get more creative in our approaches to these problems because climate change is only going to get worse. Population continues to increase, so um, I like the idea of a decentralized approach. Yes, water utilities for 100 years or more. That's typically what they do. They find a big river and build a big dam and you have a massive supply and can take care of a lot of people that way, and it works fine until it doesn't. uh, so in places like the Southwest now with the Colorado River system, for example, we're really seeing the limits of what can be done and the effects of climate change and so forth with a big centralized approach. So, yeah, that sounds very interesting and exciting to
Mike,
take
I,
a
I
more
have,
decentralized approach.
I guess I have a question. Like from, I don't know if you might know this, from the perspective of a municipality or a utility that have the responsibility to provide this water. Maybe in King County, this maybe isn't as big of a, a problem. But what ideas do you have? Like, if let's say in Texas and you have a different utility or municipality that have a water problem, how likely are they to work with new technologies, or how open or how interested would they be in new technologies to maybe try to solve their problem?
Well, I think that's probably going to vary quite a bit from one place to the next. I'm up here in Washington, of course, so I can't speak too much about Texas, for example. But again, historically, the approach of municipal water supply, just like energy or other services like that, has been a large centralized kind of top-down approach. But I think more and more utilities are coming around to this idea that, well, we need to think about things a little more creatively now. Just an example, over the course of my career, I've seen attitudes in the municipal water industry regarding rainwater harvesting. I've seen those attitudes change pretty significantly from a place that, frankly, used to be kind of hostile to the idea. And some places, I'm sure, still are. Water utilities tended not to like that sort of approach. And to be fair, when you go the more decentralized route, you do raise other issues for yourself, like water quality. If it's a centralized system, a big reservoir, and you've got one entity that's managing that and making sure everything is okay, well, that tends to work pretty well. If you decentralize that and now you have lots and lots of very small systems, all of which still need to be made safe, you're potentially creating some issues for yourself there. However, again, I've seen those attitudes change greatly over the past 20 or so years. States that used to have laws explicitly prohibiting the capture and use of rainwater for municipal water supply, a lot of those laws and regulations have been changed and updated now. So, long answer to your question, but I think municipalities are coming around to
Mm.
understand that we have to be much more creative now.
Why do you think the attitude has changed? And do you know where this has changed? Maybe I should go look into it.
Well, again, I'm obviously most familiar with where I am in King
Yeah.
County, and I can tell you there the reason for the change is it was customer driven. The customers kind of demanded that. There was, again, from back towards the beginning of my career, there was a lot of interest at the customer level for uh, uh, creating rainwater systems and usually even just for like watering plants, watering the lawn, things like that, not really bringing the water inside the home. In some cases, yeah, but mostly not. But that change was really driven by customers saying, no, we want to try this. This is something this is an aspect that we want to have for our home. So I think it's been very much a bottom up process. And as far as where, really, I think this idea of, in particular, rainwater harvesting is something I've worked with a fair bit throughout the West, the American West. you will find that now. Some places that just are too far away from a municipal supply line, and there's just no groundwater available. There are homes now that survive. Quite a lot of them actually survive totally off
Oh,
rainwater that they
wow.
capture. It's a huge deal in Texas. I do know that, for example, Texas is kind of they're kind of the leaders in that particular field. So ultimately, I think a lot of this is coming from customers. People do want to live more sustainably now, a little more naturally with the environment, and things like rainwater harvesting or atmospheric water harvesting, those can be part of the equation.
Yeah, that's definitely fascinating. Um, we've been thinking a lot. So actually, one of our, we've been talking with different municipal governments, and we found that in certain places there are legislation around even fast tracking permitting of rainwater harvesting systems because of various water challenges. And in one of our
Mhm.
projects, we actually put in a filing that we're a novel rainwater harvesting system. Obviously, atmospheric water doesn't exist, so we said, yeah, we're a new kind
Yeah.
of rainwater harvesting. We just actively, we don't passively collect, we actively collect.
Okay. That's an interesting way to look at it, but I think totally legitimate. It's water that's up in the sky and it's going to come down eventually. You're just helping the process along a little bit and exerting a little more control than you would have with a passive rainwater system.
Yeah, that's the control. That's actually a, a phrase we often use internally is how we think about our value proposition is that we're offering control or security over your water, just in case that something might happen with your other water resource. And of course, rainwater capture is fantastic. Um, and we want to offer another option that gives you that control so that if you want, you can turn it on and actively reach into the sky.
Well, with climate change, with these mega droughts that we're experiencing, and then here up here in the Northwest, we also have real concerns about seismic events. And there's a big subduction zone off the Washington coast, and we're just, we're all poised and waiting for the next 9.0 earthquake. And that circumstance is really driving a lot of the thinking and planning among water utilities, at least in this region, in uh, thinking more about redundancy. What if this major line over here, this major supply line, what if that is ruptured and it's just taken out for a while? How are we going to provide water for homes and fire protection and things like that? And so those kinds of situations, I think, are also in part driving this little more open mindedness that we're seeing now among the utility planners, anyway.
Right, right. Resilience, adaptation, and redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, super, super important. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I think the Mexico City situation really woke up a lot of people in America since, if you hear about water challenges in Africa or water challenges in, Middle East or Southeast Asia, these places are so far away that it's like, oh, like that's something that news. That's not really a thing that, we see. But obviously, plenty of Americans, especially since the pandemic, has started going to Mexico or even now live in Mexico City. um, I'm not sure if you know, Mike, but I think I look at the data. There's been a huge like migration movement from New York and a lot of these other states to Mexico City, especially for people of the younger generation. And all of a sudden, the even the wealthy areas of Mexico City started having tap shutoffs with their drought. And then
Mm,
I think that has reverberated for many people to others like, wow, like this is pretty close to home. It's like I'm like 2 hours flight away from
mm,
home, or in my case, it's like even
right.
an hour and a half. So, and
Mm.
and then Atlanta recently and Houston power outage. It's here. It's here, and this is why I think podcasts like yours, Mike, is so important. Everyone needs to be educated on this kind of things, and then you're always one water outage away from a pretty big problem.
That's right. Water and the way we manage our water supplies in this country, in the United States, is remarkable, and we were trend setting and so forth. But a downside of having really good quality, safe, reliable drinking water 24/7, 365, a downside of that is we get used to it. And so we don't think about it too much. We don't appreciate it as much as we should until, as you say, you turn on the tap and nothing happens. And then you change your mind very quickly about that. So, yeah, we need to be a little more mindful about these issues, I think, and a little more proactive.
Absolutely. I mean, I use my own machine at home, and so does my parents. And hopefully that there's more and more of the work that we can do can help support people that are in need.
Excellent. Well, where can listeners go to learn more about the work you're doing?
Oh, quite simple. I would say two things. They could just go to our website. We have lots of information there on educating folks about how our technology works or how they should prepare for water outages and a number of other types of resources. It's just www.aquaria.world, not .com, .world. We're trying to build a better world.
Aquaria.world.
Yep.
Okay,
Uh,
great.
or they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, so they can drop a message and say, "Hey, I
Okay,
came from Mike's podcast," and just come say hi.
very nice. Well, one last question, Brian. What do you most enjoy about your job?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Um, I think nobody founding a company will tell you that it's easy. It's you kind of like lose 10 years of your life in the process. Um, but
I'm
that's
sure.
exactly what's great about it is that, despite all of the challenges, I think, and I'm extremely passionate about what I do. It gives me a very strong sense of purpose that what I'm doing has a bigger meaning than myself. And at the same time, I'm also building a solution that many people need. And at the end of the day, I think I will be able to deliver value to everyone, from my customers to my, shareholders, and also to the society in a greater way. So that makes me feel that, I'm spending my time very wisely, and I feel happy from all of the, you know, feedback I get from what I'm doing. So that keeps me going, and it has to be good enough and satisfying for me to do, and all of the sacrifices I have to make. So this is what keeps me going.
Well, that is excellent, and it is critically important work. I'm glad you're doing it. So thank you very much, Brian. And thank all of you for being with me today. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. If you did, please like and subscribe and follow us on the socials at We Need Water. You can also find helpful information about Cascade's water conservation programs at cascadewater.org. Have a great day, and remember, we need water.